people, not just a handful of billionaires. We have a message to the billionaire class, and that message is you can't have it all. You can't get huge tax breaks when children in our country are going hungry. You cannot continue to shut down factories in America and send our jobs abroad when millions of Americans need jobs here. You cannot continue to hide billions in profits in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens. Corporate America and the billionaire class are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. But it is not just income and wealth inequality. It is the tragic reality that for the last 40 years, the great middle class, once the envy of the entire world, has been disappearing. Despite exploding technology and increased worker productivity, median family income today is almost $5,000 less than it was in 1999. In my state of Vermont and here in California, it is not unusual for people to be working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, just to cobble together some income and some health care. That is not the economy we need. We will not accept people working 40 or 50 hours a week and then having to go to the emergency food shelf in order to get food to feed their families. We will not accept a mom and dad going to work not able to find decent quality childcare for their kids. We will not accept people not being able to go to the doctor because they have no health insurance or they have a high deductible. When we talk about the economy, it is important for us to understand what real unemployment is in America, and it's not what you may think it is. Every month, the government publishes a statistic called the official unemployment rate, which is now about 5.3%. But what that study does not include are people who have given up looking for work and the millions of people who are working part-time when they want to work full-time. And when you add that together, it turns out that real unemployment in America is about 10.5%. That means there are millions of people living in desperation, wanting to work, who cannot work. And let me tell you something that is hardly ever discussed. One of the kind of fun things about running for president is you can bring issues out from under the rug and demand discussion. And let me tell you, now other candidates may not talk about it, the media may not report it. But let me tell you about an American tragedy today, and that is the unacceptably high rate of youth unemployment. Youth unemployment. A couple of months ago, I asked the Economic Policy Institute to take a look at what real youth unemployment is. That means people who have no jobs, looking for jobs, or working part-time. And they looked at high school graduates between the ages of 17 and 20. And this is what they found. If those kids were white, real unemployment was 33%. If the kids were Hispanic, real unemployment, 36%. If the kids were African American, real unemployment, 51%. This is an issue that cannot continue to be ignored. And if you think that high unemployment rates for kids is not connected to the fact that we have more people in jail than any other country, you would be sorely mistaken. It seems to me to make a lot more sense to be investing in education and jobs than incarceration and jails. When we talk about the economy, it is important for us all to know that millions of Americans are working at totally inadequate wages. The current federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour is a starvation wage. And let me congratulate Los Angeles for raising the minimum wage over a period of a few years to $15 an hour. And what Los Angeles did, what Seattle did, what other communities are doing is exactly what we have got to do at the national level. It is not a radical idea to suggest that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. And when we talk about fair wages, I would hope that every man in this audience will stand with women demanding pay equity. There is no rational rational reason why women should be making 78 cents on the dollar compared to men. We got to fight for pay equity for women workers. Many of you have heard my Republican colleagues talk about family values. You ever hear that? Our Republican friends just love families. But you know, and I know, what they mean by family values. What they mean is that women in America should not be able to control their own bodies. I disagree. What Republicans mean when they talk about family values is that women should not be able to purchase the contraceptives they want. I disagree. And when Republicans talk about family values, what they are saying to our gay brothers and sisters that they should not be able to get married or enjoy all of the benefits of American citizenship. I disagree. But let's forget the Republicans now and forever. And let's talk about our family values. I have 4 beautiful kids, 7 beautiful grandchildren, and my wife Jane and I have been married for 27 years. I believe, Jane believes, and you believe in family values, but our values are a little bit different than Republican family values. And when I talk about family values, I believe that the United States must end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth, the only one, which does not guarantee workers paid medical and family leave. So when we talk about family values, let us understand that today in LA, today in my state of Vermont, a woman gave birth. And that is obviously an enormous day for that woman, for the father, for the family, and a pretty big day for the baby as well. But here's the point. If that woman and her family have sufficient income, that mom and that dad can stay home and love that baby, get to know that baby, bond with that baby, and all of you who are parents know what an extraordinary moment that is in our lives. And if that mom and family have income, she can stay home with that baby for weeks and months, as she should be able to do. But But there are moms who just gave birth today in LA, who just gave birth today in my state of Vermont, who don't have a lot of money. And those moms, because they lack money, will be forced to go back to work in 1 week or 2 weeks. They will be separated. They will be separated from their babies in the most important moments of that baby's life and the mom's life. That is not a family value. And that is why I will fight to have the United States join virtually every country on earth and guarantee at least 12 weeks of paid family leave. And we also have to end the disgrace of seeing a situation where a kid is sick, but mom can't stay home because she doesn't have any paid sick leave. That's gotta end. And at a time when, as a result of the collapse of the American middle class, our people are working the longest hours of any people in a major country on earth. 85% of male workers are working more than 40 hours a week. 65% of women workers working more than 40 hours a week. 100 years ago, workers marched through the streets demanding a 40-hour work week. We haven't reached it yet. And to my mind, every worker in this country deserves at least 2 weeks paid vacation. When we talk about the economy, whenever posters go out and they call you up and they say, well, what is the issue uppermost on your mind? And invariably, what people say is the issue of jobs. People understand that if you're 55 years of age today, you may go to work tomorrow and your employer may say, well, I'm really sorry we have to let you go, but we're hiring somebody half your age at half your pay. And if you are young, a high school graduate, or if you are a new college graduate, you know how hard it is to find a job commensurate with your education. So when real youth unemployment is over 40%, when general national unemployment is over 10%, we need a massive federal jobs program to put our people back to work. And the fastest and most effective way to do that is to take a look at our crumbling infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our water systems, our wastewater plants, our rail, our airports. And when we rebuild our crumbling infrastructure, we can create, with a $1 trillion investment, 13 million good-paying jobs. But when we talk about jobs, it is not just creating new jobs, it is making sure we do not continue to lose jobs. Since 2001, we have lost almost 60,000 factories in America, millions of good-paying jobs. And the major reason for that is a disastrous trade policy which has allowed corporate America to shut down here and move our jobs abroad. We need a trade policy which creates good-paying jobs here, protects poor people abroad, not just making billions for CEOs. And I will continue to help lead the fight against the TPP. When we use words like greed, dishonesty, arrogance, recklessness, these are just some of the words to describe Wall Street. As a result of the greed and recklessness and illegal behavior on Wall Street, this country was plunged into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Millions of people lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their life savings. I find it interesting that a kid who smokes marijuana can get an arrest record, but the CEOs who help destroy the economy get away with it all. The taxpayers, the middle class of this country, bailed out Wall Street because those banks were too big to fail. And yet today, most of those banks are bigger than they were when we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. We need a financial system which provides affordable loans to small and medium-sized businesses to help us create jobs. We don't need a financial system which is an island unto itself designed only to make huge profits for a handful of people. In my view, not only do we have to reestablish Glass-Steagall legislation, but more importantly, we have to understand that if a bank is too big to fail, it is too big to exist. We got to break them up. Brothers and sisters, let me be as blunt as I can and telling you that as a result of the disastrous Supreme Court decision in the Citizens United case, the American political system has been totally corrupted and the foundations of American democracy are being undermined. By a 5-4 Supreme Court decision. What the Supreme Court said to the wealthiest people in this country, they said, guys, you already own much of the economy. Now we're going to give you the opportunity to own the United States government, and that is what they are trying to do right now. When you have one family, the Koch brothers, a family, an extreme right-wing family that believes we should end Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the Environmental Protection Agency. When you have one family spending more money in this election cycle than either the Democrats or the Republicans, brothers and sisters, you're not talking about democracy, you're talking about oligarchy, and we have got to stop that. I have not made many campaign promises during the campaign so far, but let me repeat one promise I have made to you, and that is any nominee of mine to the U.S. Supreme Court will in fact have to pass a litmus test. And that litmus test will be that he or she will state loudly and clearly that they will vote to overturn Citizens United. Too many people, I'm the former chairman of the Veterans Committee, and I talk to all kinds of veterans. Too many men and women have put their lives on the line to defend American democracy, to allow a handful of billionaires to take it away from us. And not only do we have to overturn Citizens United, we have to go further than that. We need to move toward public funding of elections. I want to see in America where when young people, regardless of their political views, they're conservative, moderate, progressive, whatever it is, I want to see people be able to run for office, to defend their points of view, to engage in debate without having to beg millionaires and billionaires for campaign funds. And when we talk about democracy, let me say this, just a couple of weeks ago, I was at an event with Martin Luther King III and people in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And what we were talking about and what we were celebrating was the 50th anniversary of the all-important Voting Rights Act. And that act, which grew out of the struggle of millions of people for so many years, what that act was about was to say that in the United States of America, every person, regardless of his or her color, was going to be able to vote. But as many of you know, 2 years ago, Supreme Court gutted a major provision of the Voting Rights Act. And the result of that is that in Republican states, many Republican states, governors and legislatures began to pass laws to suppress the vote. Under the guise of fighting voter fraud, they intentionally made it harder for low-income people, for people of color, for older people, for students to participate in the political process. And let me say this. I'm a politician. I have run for office in the state of Vermont many times. Sometimes, most of the times, I won. Sometimes I lost. But it never occurred to me that the way to win an election was to deny people who disagree with me the right to vote. In fact, those people who don't have the guts to go out and tell people what they think, those candidates who don't believe they can win based on their ideas, those candidates, those governors, those Republican states who are trying to keep people from participating in the political process are nothing more than cowards. That is why I have just introduced legislation for universal voter registration. If you're 18 years of age in this country, you should be registered to vote. End of discussion. I think all of us know that today the United States is living in a very competitive global economy. And for us to succeed, we need to have the best educated workforce in the world. It is beyond my comprehension how today we have a situation where hundreds of thousands of bright, qualified young people who have studied hard, people with a burning desire to go to college, but they can't go to college because their families lack the money. That's wrong. It is wrong to deny those young people the right to become teachers and doctors and scientists, and it is a terrible idea for the future of our economy. And that is why I have introduced legislation and will make happen as president, creating a situation where public colleges and universities in America are tuition free. Situation not only where every person in this country who has the ability and has the desire can go to college regardless of income, but this is also what I want. You know and I know that there are kids in LA today in the 3rd or 4th grade, kids in my state of Vermont, 5th grade, 6th grade. Their parents never went to college. They don't know any people who have gone to college. And the idea of going to college for them is nothing more than a dream which they believe they will never fulfill. I want those kids in the 3rd grade and the 5th grade to understand that if they do their schoolwork seriously, if they study hard, they will be able to go to college. And when we talk about the absurdity of how we finance higher education in America, we are also aware that millions of Americans, some young and some not so young, are being overwhelmed by outrageous student debts and high interest rates on those debts. It makes no sense to me that we have people paying 8, 9, 10% interest rates on student debt when we can refinance our homes for 2 or 3%. So the legislation that I've introduced will allow people to refinance at lower interest rates and also get the government out of profiteering on high interest rates. I have talked to too many people who are paying 20, 25% of their limited income paying off their student debt. That has got to end. When we talk about our responsibilities as human beings and as parents, there is nothing more important than leaving our planet healthy and habitable for our kids and our grandkids. The scientific community has spoken in an almost unanimous voice. Climate change is real, caused by human activity. It is already causing devastating problems in our country and around the world. And what they tell us is if we don't get our act together soon, the situation will become much worse. They're telling us that by the end of this century, if we allow business to go on as usual, this planet will be between 5 and 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer. That means more drought, more floods, more extreme weather disturbances, more acidification of the ocean, more rising sea levels, more international conflict as people fight for limited natural resources. We have the moral responsibility to lead the world in transforming our energy system. In moving away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. Now, as perhaps the most progressive member of the Senate, needless to say, I have many disagreements with my Republican colleagues. But on this issue, what we are seeing is an international embarrassment because the vast majority of Republicans are rejecting science, and we cannot do that. And I urge my Republican colleagues not to worry so much about your campaign contributions from the Koch brothers and ExxonMobil and the coal companies. Worry about the future for your kids and your grandchildren. some of you know it and some of you don't. There is one major country on earth, one, that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right, and that is the United States of America. Today, despite the gains of the Affordable Care Act, 35 million Americans lack health insurance, and even more are underinsured. In my strong view, we must join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a right, not a privilege. And the best way to do that is through a Medicare for All single-payer program. What this campaign is about is the understanding that the rich get richer and everybody else gets poorer, because we are not standing together as one people. And when we talk about bringing our people together, I hope all of you understand that it is absolutely imperative that we bring 11 million undocumented people out of the shadows. 11 million people cannot continue to live in fear, cannot continue to be exploited, cannot continue not to have legal rights. I was in Phoenix a few weeks ago, and after my remarks, I met with about a half a dozen young Hispanic kids. Tears were flowing from their eyes because they feared that their mom or their dad or they would be deported. Our job is to bring families together, not separate them. Our job is to provide legal rights for the undocumented. Our job is to pass comprehensive immigration reform and a road and a path toward citizenship. Brothers and sisters, you all know that the world we live in today is a pretty crazy place. We turn on the TV and we see acts of barbarism that we cannot understand. People blowing up things, killing people, killing children. It's horrible. And nobody that I know has any magical answers to some of these terrible international situations. But this I do know. I spoke to the president the other day and we talked about his negotiations with Iran and the treaty and the agreement he hopes to bring about. It is my strong belief that Iran should not get a nuclear weapon, but it is my stronger belief, or equally important, that we have got to bring that about and do everything we possibly can to accomplish that goal without another war. As someone who voted against the war in Iraq, it is amazing to me to see Most of my Republican colleagues forget about the cost of war. Not just the 6,700 brave men and women who died. Not just those who came home without legs and arms and eyesight, but those 500,000 who came home with post-traumatic stress disorder and traumatic brain injury. Not only must we, as our highest priority, provide the best quality health care to all of our veterans, but we must also understand the true cost of war and the pain it brings to so many. And that is why war has got to be the last recourse, not the first. Brothers and sisters, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. If we get our priorities right, if we don't give more tax breaks to billionaires and develop policy which hurts working people, if we stand together, if we think big and not small, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. We can. We can guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a right. We can make certain that every parent in America has quality, affordable child care, and every American can get a higher education regardless of the income of the family. We can make certain that our seniors, our parents, do not have to choose between food and medicine and can live out their retirement with dignity. My Republican colleagues want to cut Social Security. We want to expand Social Security. We can live in a country where everyone, no matter their race, their religion, their disability, their sexual orientation, their country of American law, of equality, that is the birthright of all of us. When we stand together, all, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. We can. We can guarantee health care to every man, woman, and child as a right. We can make certain that every parent in America has quality, affordable child care, and every American can get a higher education regardless of the income of the family. We can make certain that our seniors, our parents, do not have to choose between food and medicine and can live out their retirement with dignity. My Republican colleagues want to cut Social Security. We want to expand Social Security. We can live in a country where everyone, no matter their race, their religion, their disability, their sexual orientation, their country of origin, can realize the full protection of American law of equality that is the birthright of all of us. When we stand together, when we do not allow them to divide us up by the color of our skin, by our sexual orientation, by whether a man or a woman, whether born in America or born somewhere else, when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Let's do it. Thank you.